there is nothing like war to bring people together. Many Republicans and many Democrats are cheerleading for war right now.
Whereas leftists and libertarians in Congress appear to be building a coalition to limit the power of President Trump to pull the U.S. into Israel's campaign against Iran. That big question is whether Democrats will use these attacks as an opportunity to oppose Trump, or whether they'll fall in line, as some in their leadership actually seem to support military action. Now, Virginia Senator Tim Kaine is leading the anti-war resolution in the Senate. He said in a statement to NBC, the American people have no interest in sending service members to fight another forever war in the Middle East. Good for him.
But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer seemingly hesitant to endorse the resolution, saying, quote, "I believe Congress and Senate Democrats, if necessary, will not hesitate to exercise our authority." Now, that statement was clearly not what many Democrats were hoping for. Representative Ro Khanna of California responded on X, writing in part, "What in the world does this mean?" and adding, "This is why your numbers are toxic with our base. They want us to be the anti-war party again." And former Democratic National Committee Vice Chair David Hogg agreed, quote, "Any Democrat who supports this war with Iran needs to be primaried. Our generation grew up going through two multi-trillion-dollar wars we should have never been involved in. We are not going back to that. If you think this is a good idea, read a history book." Oh!
So I'm very interested to see how this shakes out. You know, Republicans, there is disagreement between many elected Republican officials in the Trump administration and the kind of conservative MAGA influencers. We're going to get more into that in a later segment. Tucker Carlson really going hard against this and others. So you see the tension on the right. I'm very interested in whether there's going to be, you're starting to see cracks of dissent on the Democratic side, or where things even shake out. Chuck Schumer clearly supports doing this. John Fetterman, perceived as a more right-leaning and Trump-friendly Democrat, wildly in favor of it. David Hogg, now not in a position in the DNC anymore, says it's a bad idea. Ro Khanna says it's a bad idea. Bernie Sanders says it's a bad idea. Where do you see this conversation going on the Democratic side?
I think the Republican cracks have been more covered.
Yeah.
I think the Democratic cracks are just as interesting because, remember, whether you agree or disagree with where the Republican Party is now, it's Donald Trump's party. So largely, I think whatever Donald Trump decides, Republicans will be like, "Oh, that sounds great." The Democratic Party has no leadership, and they're out of power everywhere, and they're trying to figure out what they are. Are they Bernie, AOC? I'll put David Hogg in there. I mean, this probably flatters David Hogg to include him in that three, but are they that party? Populist, I don't want to say anti-war, but very skeptical of foreign conflicts? Or are they the kind of like, you know, the establishment party that I guess Hillary Clinton sort of embodies, right? I mean, I feel like we've been through this before. Go back to the use of force against Iraq. Who was against it then in the Democratic Party? Go Bernie Sanders, right? I mean, he was like, we cannot do this. And the Hillary Clinton, John Edwards, call back to a former generation, John Edwards, John Kerry, you know, what we would define as the establishment then, certainly of the Democratic Party, was like, I don't know if they actually supported it because so many of them walked away from it in the long run, but they thought it was the right political vote, which, by the way, goes back to your previous point. Make them vote. Put them on the record. Their job is to vote.
And having gone through that experience, it now seems obvious from just a politics standpoint which would be the right course of action for the Democratic Party. Seems fairly obvious to me that going absolutely against this would be, in my view, the politically good thing for them to do. Right. It gives them something to define themselves in opposition to Trump. That's what they want to do. They want to fight Trump.
With the base
and it's like, and the base, some people, and the normal people, like if you poll people, even very conservative-leaning people, they're always more skeptical of foreign intervention than the establishment. And I think some people will go, wait a minute, you want to fight Trump to the death on deporting people, on toxic cultural issues, transgender stuff, Gulf of America, but you don't want to fight on whether we're going to have World War III? Are you kidding me? So it just seems so apparent that they should really stand up against this. And many of them are, to be clear. I'm not. It's a division that's going to emerge. But Chuck Schumer, how can he claim to be the right person for this moment if he's going to back up the administration on this and be the most prominent leader of the Democratic Party in Congress? That seems impossible to me.
And remember, Chuck Schumer was the guy, and we can argue about the policy of it, but the politics of it, Chuck Schumer was the guy who said, oh, well, we're going to make a deal to keep the government open on the budget, right? Like, it's a fundamental misread. Look, this happens. Politicians pass their expiration date. They just do. So do people. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, and I think Chuck Schumer Chuck Schumer in the 90s, I will say, had an incredible ear for what sort of the party wanted, right? He'd been in Congress for a long time. He ran for the Senate. He wins a competitive Senate primary. He beats Al D'Amato. Like, he has lost it, right? I just think the party, it's the McConnell.
Yes.
I mean, the party underneath it, the rank and file is much more liberal than Chuck Schumer is.
Yes.
And just like the party was, I don't know if it was more conservative or more Trumpy or whatever, but much different than what Mitch McConnell was. And that has happened. And like, look, I give a guy like Ro Khanna's running for president.
Yes.
Okay, like there's a reason that I think he believes this stuff, that the U.S. should not be in this, but he's running for president. But I actually think he understands where the party is at the moment much better
I completely
than
agree.
Chuck Schumer.
This is a party that's having trouble specifically with young men as a result of the last election results, losing young people, but particularly young men. And what so many commentators probably forget is that young men are particularly sensitive to the issue of military involvement because they're who gets sent off to wars. Yeah. And so it's not, again, this is going to be an issue that further alienates young guys who increasingly affiliated with Joe Rogan are getting their news from independent podcast people, all of whom are against this kind of thing. That appeals to young men, and your message to them is going to be, well, let's increase military hostilities. It's a losing message to win people back.
I was thinking this morning. You know who would be the Democrat, if it wasn't Schumer, the Democrat cheering this on the loudest? Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think
You think he was going to tell Israel no?
No chance. and I think we know that version of the Democratic Party, that Biden establishment, hawk it, that version of the Democratic Party is not, now maybe it sells broadly as in a general election, it is not what the Democratic base wants. Not even close.
Could not agree more. Up next, a C-SPAN caller blasting Jake Tapper over his coverage of former President Joe Biden. Stay tuned.